If you're selling high ticket health or fitness offers, then 30-minute sales calls are actually pretty easy to do. But I guess why would you even want to have 30-minute sales calls? Now, there's a couple of reasons. One of the most beneficial ones is that shortening your call times will actually increase your closing percentage. A lot of people don't realize this, but the more fluff that you have in your call, the more useless questions and the more just nonsense that you pile in there, the less likely it is that someone will actually close. I'm sure everyone watching this has experienced before where they've been on a 60, 90-minute sales call, even sometimes even longer, only for the person at the very end, the prospect at the end, to say, you've given me a lot to think about. I really just need to go away and have a think about this. And we actually caused that by letting the call go on so long. So the more focused, direct, shorter that our calls are, as long as we're not like skipping corners and cutting things out that are actually necessary, the more likelihood that we will actually get the sale. Obviously, then the second benefit is having shorter calls is going to result in increased earnings per hour. And if you're a sales rep or a business owner, this is really the metric that you should be looking at, or this is what I've always looked at. If you're someone like me that wants to work as little as possible and make as much money as possible, then this is really your KPI. How much can I earn for every single hour of work that I put in? And let's say you didn't even increase your closing percentage. If you can go from 60-minute calls to 30-minute calls, like it takes 30 minutes on your calendar, then you're obviously just going to double your income per hour instantly. So this is one of the easiest ways to just make a lot more money and to really build up your capacity. And when I was working, I used to take, 10 calls in 5 hours, which obviously if they were 60-minute calls, that would take me a lot longer. So I was able to make a lot of money quickly. And then with that, being able to hit your income goals in less time, it means that you have more free time, but also it means that you have less stress, right? Because there's obviously the stress of being able to make enough money. But when I say less stress, I also mean like just the emotional load of being on sales calls. I'm very introverted. I'm sure a lot of people watching this are quite introverted as well. I don't know what the split is between extroversion and introversion, but I'm sure about 50% of people, roughly. But yeah, I'm very introverted, and talking to people for really long periods of time, it really drains me. So being able to just pile in as many calls as I can as quickly as I can while still closing at a really high percentage just meant that I had like less emotional load, less stress from that side of things. So doing this, like, this is pretty much the key skill that allowed me to collect over $100,000 per month for 27 months straight, working less than 20 hours per week. So I was working as a sales rep for different health and fitness offers. Here's just an example and a little bit of proof. So there's three ways then really that you can shorten your calls, right? This isn't a fully exhausted list. There's obviously a lot that goes into shortening your calls, but here's three kind of actionable steps that you can take away from this that are going to allow you to shorten your call times down as much as possible. So we have useful versus interesting information. We have mastering the first 5 minutes of the sales call, and we have presenting your price correctly so that you don't have to take a ton of time at the end of calls still trying to make the sale. So useful versus interesting information then. So what is useful versus interesting information? So useful information is anything that moves you closer to the sale. Interesting information sounds relevant, but doesn't make the sale more likely. And you're probably like, well, great. What the fuck am I meant to do with that information? I have no idea what's useful, no idea what's interesting. And this is obviously the benefit then of like having a script and process and having some real clear guidance so that you know exactly why you're asking every question. You know the reason behind every question because there's some really key pieces of information that you need to get and the prospect needs to say to themselves out loud so that it will end up in a sale at the end. And there's a lot of information that's not necessary. So you see a lot of people talking about like scriptless selling and just vibes and basically having no process. I completely disagree with that. And if you're someone that's watching this and you've been lured down that path, I'm waving a warning sign here that if you want to get the best results possible, please do get a script, please do get a process that is proven to work in the health and fitness space. Even just doing that alone will save you a ton of pain. But I'm going to give you guys an example just so you have a bit of an idea. So in the CPC sales system, which is obviously the system that I've created, there's the second section. So the PCP is called process problem, right? And the goal in the process problem, there's a couple of goals. The first basic goal is to disqualify the most successful thing that they've ever done, right? The reason that we want to disqualify the most successful thing that they've ever done is if they basically tell themselves out loud, like, oh, the thing that was the most successful didn't work because of this. At the end of the call, when I present them the option that I'm trying to sell them, my program, they're not going to mentally go, oh, well, I'll just go back to Weight Watchers. Like, let's say Weight Watchers was the thing that was most successful. They won't at the end of the call say, oh, well, I'll just go back to Weight Watchers because they've already said out loud, well, I'm not going to go back to Weight Watchers. Or Weight Watchers didn't work for me because, I didn't really like counting the points. I didn't like the meetings. It's definitely not something that I would want to do for the rest of my life. And when I stopped, I gained the weight back. So it doesn't really make sense as a long-term solution. Like, let's say we got them to verbalize all of that. At the end, they're not going to say, oh, well, I'll go back to Weight Watchers. Because that just doesn't make any fucking sense. And there's a thing called cognitive dissonance, which is like, it's painful to hold two ideas in your head at the same time. And people really it makes them feel bad to kind of go back on what they said. So that's like a really key part of that section, right? Disqualify the most successful thing. The second thing that we're looking for then is we want to dive into patterns and find fears and all that. But that's not necessary for right now. So the example then of like useful versus interesting would be when I ask, cool, so what have you tried previously to fix this then? Have you followed any formal nutrition or exercise programs? And they say, oh, well, I tried Weight Watchers, keto, the cookie diet, I've done fasting, I went to the gym with my friend, I da 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 da, and that list can go on forever. And there's probably some people nodding their heads here saying like, yeah, Jesus, people will just like keep talking. Sometimes they'll even go into, well, for breakfast, I have this. And for lunch, I have a slice of toast with 2 eggs on it. And then I'll have a smoothie. And on Saturdays, I like to do, and it's just like, oh my God. And that is interesting information. They're all things that they're relevant. I can see why the prospect is telling me these things, but they do not make the sale more likely. So the useful information in that section is, what is the most successful thing you've ever done? So when I say, cool, so what have you tried previously to fix this? They start listing things. As soon as I realize, oh, they're listing things, we're in interesting information, I say, okay, cool, so you've tried quite a few things. I guess, like, what was the most successful thing that you've ever done? And I eliminate the need for 2 minutes of interesting conversation and I bring it to the useful, right? And when we talk about that, to even go further down that line, what I really want to do, the very first thing I want to do is I want to disqualify based on results. So my next question to keep honing in on useful information would be, okay, and in terms of weight loss, how did that go? Okay, we're looking for the useful information. If I said, okay, and the Weight Watchers was the most successful, how was it? And they go, oh yeah, it was okay. Okay, cool. Like, and what was good about it? Oh yeah, I like this and that. We never get to the useful information, which is like, how much weight did you lose? Right? So it's really important that you understand. Think of your sales call like a funnel, and each section we're funneling down into specific answers that we're trying to get. So the next thing then to focus on, my dog is going mental in the background, so I apologize if you can hear the barking. So the next thing to focus on then is really mastering the first 5 minutes of the call. So how do you master the first 5 minutes of the sales call? And why is this important in the first place? Because again, anyone that's been on sales calls and has struggled with talkative clients or talkative prospects will know that sometimes people will, it's like they gain so much momentum because we let them talk and talk and talk and talk. They gain so much momentum that it actually becomes harder and harder and harder to get into the conversation and to actually take control of it again. So when I say like mastering the first 5 minutes, what I really mean is just turning up and setting the tone for how the conversation is going to go. If you can take control of it, and I have a couple of tips on how to do that. If you can take control of it correctly, people often will just kind of fall into line and the conversation will flow and you will feel a lot more in control. And there's always going to be people watching this that think like, no, but my prospects are different. The people I talk to are different. And I want to tell you that I've personally sold on many different offers in many different countries, Americans, Australians, people from the UK, people from Ireland, and I've sold pretty much every niche you can think of. And using these things, using these tips, I've always been able to control the conversation. So don't think that your prospects are special and that you have particularly talkative people. You can control the conversation. You can get 30-minute calls, right? So a couple of tips then when you're coming on to the call. So I always just mentally, especially if you're a bit drained, it can be, sometimes we can turn up to the call and it can just get away from us. So it's really important that just turn your energy up to 11. I always just used to tell myself, okay, I'm completely 100% switched on for the first 5 minutes and then the rest will happen. Okay, so turn up, be engaging, right? So stay active in the conversation, be engaging. We want to use active listening, right? And when I say be active in the conversation, what I really mean is we want to, make noises. We want to acknowledge what they're saying. We want to use our, okay, okay, gotcha, right? Because staying active like that, it allows us to jump in whenever we need to. We can say, okay, okay. And then you ask your question, right? So stay active, be engaging, turn up, have a generally nice disposition. We want to be neutral. And some people watching this will think like engaging and neutral. How do those things relate? Because I know I made the mistake when I first got into sales. I thought that neutral meant like not giving a fuck. And that's not it at all, right? So like when we talk about neutral, we want to, we need to be detached from the sale. But being detached from the sale means that you don't, as long as this person is like taking action towards their goals, you don't mind if it's with us or not, right? You're just trying to help the other person. So we can be detached from the sale and attached to the person. Like I want you to be successful. I want you to achieve your goals. I want you to, to be happy with your life because I care about you. Okay. But whether it's with us or not, that's less important. Now, you're never going to say this in the first 5 minutes, really, but like that's just so you understand the difference. Being neutral doesn't mean being boring and not giving a fuck. You still want to be engaging. You still want to be someone that's nice to talk to and that's active in the conversation. So being neutral then, that means using neutral language. You don't want to be saying things like, oh, you have to give me a decision at the end of this, and whatever nonsense people say at the end of calls, right? We want to say, potentially, probably, maybe, using neutral language. That's kind of a different topic anyway. And then we all want to have a water off a duck's back mentality. So just like, nothing can phase me. I'm just here to help. I'm just here to see what your problem is and to see if there's any way that we can help you with this. So as long as we have those things, we really turn up our energy for the first 5 minutes, come on with the right tone. The next thing then, when it comes to mastering the first 5 minutes, is asking questions and controlling the conversation. And when I say asking questions, the last thing that I want you to do is to just ask nonsense small talk questions like, where are you from? What's the weather like? What do you do for work? They are all things that they're not even interesting, right? We had useful and interesting. These aren't even interesting things. They're just cringy things that we use to fill the silence. The prospect doesn't like it. You probably don't like it. So just don't do it, right? Just cut straight to the chase, and dive straight into like asking them about their problems, asking them about what resonated or stood out to them from what they've seen from us, asking them questions about what they're hoping to get out of the call. Any of these questions, and we do obviously have a specific way that we do it, but it's not really for this video. And then the next thing is interrupt your prospect. Like, in the first 5 minutes, if they start going off on a tangent and they start talking about things that are not useful, they're answering different questions, they're getting way ahead of themselves, they're talking about things that that shouldn't be talked about for another 15-20 minutes, and they're diving straight into it right now, you need to interrupt them and you need to bring it back. And there's a couple of tips for interrupting people. One, obviously, is if you're staying active, it becomes a lot easier. Two is, don't be scared to just do it, right? A lot of people think it's going to be rude, and it's really, really not. Okay, I've interrupted thousands and thousands of people, and nobody really ever has a problem with it, as long as you ask them a question about themselves. So when you interrupt someone, don't interrupt them and go on a monologue or say some big long paragraph. Interrupt them and ask a question, right? If they're way ahead, just say something like, Mary, you're on chapter 10 and I'm on chapter 1. So is it okay if we just bring it back a little bit just to make sure I don't miss anything? Yeah, of course. Okay, cool. And like, what age are you? Right? So we can just bring it back, or you can just ask the question, right? A lot of people overcomplicate this and they think it's like really difficult to do. But once you get into the habit of interrupting people, it's incredibly easy. One rule is, if someone is saying something really emotional, like they're crying or they're talking about, how a loved one died, you can't interrupt them. Just let them finish what they're saying. Show some empathy, and then ask your next question. Do not prolong the situation by asking questions about it. Someone says, my husband died. Say, that's awful. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I guess, like, when was the last time that you were, happy with your weight? Right? Just ask the question. Don't say, how did your husband die? When did he die? Things that are not relevant to what you're actually trying to do. Because we're trying to cut out as much fluff as possible and trying to nail onto the useful information, keep the call flowing forward on things that are actually going to result in a sale. So the third thing then is presenting your price correctly. So I do have a quick word track that we can look at when it comes to presenting your price correctly. But some of the key reasons behind presenting your price like this is, oftentimes when people are presenting their price and they're trying to close the call, they do it in a way that results in a lot of confusion, and they end up getting a lot of objections that they don't necessarily need to get. So the common way that people often present their price is they say basically something like, cool, so the price is $5,000. And then they just stare at the person and tension builds and it's awkward and the person's like, are you still there? Is there a glitch? What's going on? Right? Because common advice is like, oh, whoever speaks first loses, or you just say it to them and then shut up. None of that is really as effective as it sounds. The most effective thing that you can do is, and this there's more to this. It's obviously you need to understand the hierarchy of objections, which is something we cover. But the basic premise is that fear and value are the two most common objections. Then you're going to get money, and then partner, and then everything else. If I just say like the price 5,000 and then I shut up, oftentimes people will just throw out an objection because they feel awkward. So they'll say, oh, yeah, okay, just let me speak to my partner about it. And now I have to deal with a partner objection, which is annoying. Or they say, oh, yeah, just let me think about that for a while. Do I have to decide right now? Right? And it's frustrating. We have extra objections that we have to deal with. So what I want to do is I want to funnel you into a money objection. I want you, if you're going to give me any objection, I want you to give me what I call a soft money objection. So a soft money objection is basically where you ask me how to split up the price, right? A hard money objection would be like, oh no, I definitely can't afford that. I need to get off this call. A soft money objection is like, how do I break up the price, right? So I want to funnel you into a soft money objection. I want you to give me the soft money objection because I know that the objection is either going to be fear or value, really. Fear being that you don't think it'll work, value that you don't think it'll be worth it. And if it's not one of those and you actually give me the soft money objection, then I just need to present you a payment plan. So this is a little bit more advanced, but this gives you an idea, right? So I'm basically giving you the option to give me the soft money objection. So I'd say, cool, so the once-off upfront investment, if you were to do it in one go, is just 2,700. Now, we can, of course, break that up, but most people generally prefer to invest the full amount up front, if they can, as they save roughly $300. Do you have any questions about that? No? Okay, so would it be better for you to do it up front and get the best possible value? Or would you be thinking that maybe you need to break it up a little bit? Okay, they're going to say, I think I need to break it up a little bit. Or they'll say they'll do it, right? Because we're giving them a discount if they do it in full. So if they can, they will. And they'll say, oh, I need to break it up a little bit. And at this point, I can check for fear and value objections. If there's an objection, I can find it, overcome it, and make the sale. And if there isn't an objection, and they're like, no, I 100% really want to do this. It's perfect for me. I just genuinely need to break it up. And that's true, and I've done my job properly. When we find a payment plan that works, I will make the sale. And this whole process, presenting the price, dealing with any basic logistical objections or any objections, getting the sale should take about 5 minutes. Now, there will obviously be cases where it takes longer, but I see people all the time take 10, 20, 30 minutes in this section just because they organized it so badly. So hopefully that was helpful. It's a little bit of a speed run. So if you enjoyed this video and you would like to watch another video on how to prevent every objection that could ever come up on a health or fitness sales call, then I recommend clicking the video that's coming up on the page. It's an absolute masterclass, if I say so myself. And hopefully I'll see you over there. Peace.